Hi, my name is Heather McGowan. I want to talk to you about how AI agents are reshaping the future of work. Questions we'll answer. What is agentic AI? How will we change with search, LLM, and how will we change with agents? What can we learn from the gig economy? By the end of this talk, you'll understand that agentic AI requires an increased focus on judgment and ethics. Agentic AI is AI acting as an agent on your behalf, doing things independently without your explicit direction. Now, this visual might be helpful to think about where we've been over the past 20 or so years. Let's talk about the evolution of tools and the evolution of tasks. So if you think about like the search engine, you can ask a search engine, what is X? And then what the human has to do is information gather, synthesize, decide, and execute. So you get the answer, but then you have to do everything with it. Then when we got 2 or 3 years ago, when we got LLMs and chatbots, you could ask them to explain X and then summarize. So some of the lift went to the tool. When that happens, the human then analyzes, decides, and still acts. Now with agentic AI, we can say achieve X and report back. In this instance, the human has to specify, evaluate, and make the strategic direction, and the human is responsible for what the AI agent may do. Agentic AI sounds really new, and it is in many ways. So goal-based agentic AI is new, but task-based agentic AI, we've had some experience with that. The Nest thermostat came out in 2007. So you can tell it to set the temperature lower when you're away, when it senses you're not around. You can even connect it to your watch and say, when I'm coming home, increase or decrease the temperature. That's it doing a task without you. Now, Amazon Alexa came out in 2014, and it could do all sorts of things. You could have it put reminders in your calendar. You could have it set alarms. You could have it connect with your calendar and tell you when certain events were going on. And then in 2014, Google Inbox came out with a whole bunch of features, one of which I used a lot, where it could scan your emails and notice when I had tickets to a play or tickets for a flight, hotel information, and automatically put it in my calendar. One of the coolest things it used to do, because I flew Southwest a lot, is it used to be able to put my Southwest flight in my calendar and remind me exactly 24 hours in advance. So I was one of those first people to check in and try to get in the A group. Let's talk about agentic AI with independent complex goals. Have you been in an autonomous vehicle like a Waymo or one of those driverless taxis? That's doing a lot of complex tasks independently to get you to location. You put in your phone, you say you want to ride from here to here, just like you do in an Uber or Lyft, and a car shows up. When you get to the car, you put your phone over it, your phone unlocks the door, you push OK in the car to the destination, and it makes a lot of decisions about interfacing with pedestrians, other traffic, weather conditions, and gets you to your destination. That's a lot of independent acts. Now, ChatGPT says something called AutoGPT. It's not available to most of us yet, but it did come out in the last year. And Devin came out in 2024, which is an independent AI coding software. It's not available to most of us, but those are examples of agentic AI, things doing independently, doing full tasks, and achieving goals where we just state the goal, we don't state the steps. Now let's look at how work has moved in the past 10 to 15 years. So we got 2 axes here, cost and complexity, and value and complexity. So if a task is repetitive and known, it could be automated. We're starting to see that happen already. We've seen many things automated. If you go to the airport and you get on a tram that goes from the center hub to the gate, like I fly out of Tampa a lot, that thing has been automated since the 90s, I think. When tasks are discrete and predictable, something you could take out of your workflow, hand to somebody else if you had the resources to do so, they could complete it and put it back into your workflow, that's what I call atomized work. We've seen a huge amount of atomized work. That's what gig work is. Work that can be done outside the organization or outside the job container. Now, when we look at tasks that are complex and ambiguous, so far we can't hand that all off to AI. We really need the human to define the goals, to judge what the technology does, the AI agent does, and still become the controller or the conductor of it. But this is examples of how work has been broken apart into automated, atomized, and augmented. Now let's look at the global growth of the gig economy, what I call atomized work. We've seen a proliferation of platforms. TaskRabbit, Fiverr, GitHub, Upwork, Uber, Postmates, for example. Between 2010 and 2020, there was a 4 to 5x increase in the number of these platforms. A huge explosion. It is growing 3 times the rate of the traditional labor market. Depending on the kind of work you do and where in the world you are, somewhere between 4.4 and 12.5% of the workforce is in the gig economy. Okay, now let's talk about agentic AI in 2 categories. There's software-based, and where there's software-based, we need a human agent conductor. Where agentic AI is robotic, it's supervised agentic. It's going to be slower for that to come, but when it comes, it's going to come very quickly. Let's talk about some examples of that robotic agentic AI. It's things like warehouse robotics. Amazon has something like 1 million of them. Surgery assistants, that kind of thing, where the robotic will do some part of the task, but the human is certainly supervising the whole thing for purposes of safety. Where agentic AI is being used in software, we're seeing this all over the place already. It's knowledge work orchestration, back office operations, and customer operations. You've probably already experienced when you call any customer line now, push 1, push 2, or answer a bunch of questions online so they have you in queue, and it's really funneling the amount of work that if you end up with a human, the human needs to do. Now, predictions on this I always think is like a parlor trick. I had a professor at my MBA program, Steve Spinelli, shout out to you, who always told me, whatever the prediction is, think it's going to take twice as long and they're going to get half as far. Deloitte says on the agentic AI software side, in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see 15 to 40% of this work completely handled by agentic AI. So take the Spinelli rule and say it's going to be between 7 and 20% in the next 7 to 10 years. Now, this is a bit older research, but it really stands up because people have looked at it again and come to the same conclusion. David Deming from Harvard was looking at the changes in share of employment relative to 1980. Now, we've been lunging at STEM skills for a long time, and I think for good reason. There's lots of reasons to have technology literacy. But along the way, we've neglected a lot of social skills. And when we look at technical skills like STEM skills, we tend to focus on math. So in Deming's model here, he talks about high math, high social, low math, high math, low social, low math, low social. So look at this chart and realize since 1980, all the gains have been in high social. Even if you have high math skills, if you have low social skills, it's been a relative decline since 1980. And his research since then, that just came out in the last year or so, finds that since 2000, the economic returns on strictly cognitive skills like high math have actually been on the decline. Now, while we've talked about college enrollment being softer, I've worked in higher ed, it's been a challenge because of our demographics. The demand for college-educated workers in the workforce still is increasing. But all the economic returns are for the non-cognitive skills, the social skills. Let's talk about the evolution of information and knowledge. So first we had the printing press. Then we had the Dewey Decimal System. Then we had search. Then we had chatbots. And now we're going to have agents. We stop and think for just a second. It took us 400 years to go from the printing press to the categorization of that information. It took us 120 years to go from that classification to being able to actually search through it. It took us 25 years to go from search to reasoning, and it's only taken us 3 years to go from reasoning to action. So I want to give you a couple of takeaways and reflections about the stuff we've talked about today. AI agents will reshape the future work. They will reshape the future of your job. Think about where you already have experience with task-based agentic AI. So that gives you a taste of what it's going to be like because you already have that experience, whether it be a Nest thermostat or an Alexa. AIs are going to be able to act, but the human's going to need to be responsible. That's where judgment and ethics become so critical. I hope this has been helpful for you. I want to give you a free gift. So if you can go to my website, heathermcgowan.com/gift, the link's below. I want to give you the introduction, the first chapter of my book, The Adaptation Advantage, which might be helpful for you if you found some of this information useful. My name's Heather McGowan. Thanks.